Okay, so imagine this. A once thriving land, just totally desolate.
Mm-hmm.
Crops are devoured, the ground is barren,
Right.
and even the sky reflects like this sense of despair.
Yeah.
Sounds like a scene from, I don't know, some dystopian novel, right?
Right.
But this is actually the scene set by the prophet Joel.
Yeah.
And you might be surprised how much his message like still resonates with us today.
For sure.
So we're going to do a deep dive here.
Okay.
Explore these themes of repentance, restoration, and the outpouring of God's Spirit.
Yeah.
But here's the real question, though.
What's that?
What does this ancient prophecy have to do with you?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, the book of Joel kicks off with this incredibly vivid description of a locust plague.
Okay.
And, it's a natural disaster of just epic proportions.
Well,
But it also serves as this really powerful metaphor for what happens spiritually when we turn away from God.
so we're delving into something deeper than just literal bugs here.
Yeah, precisely.
Oh.
Think of it like this. The locusts symbolize a kind of spiritual emptiness.
Yeah.
The kind of void we feel when we drift from our values, our purpose,
Right.
and from God himself.
Yeah, that image of a stripped bare landscape
Right.
really hits home.
Yeah,
I bet a lot of us listening have experienced that feeling
for sure.
in different areas of our lives,
Absolutely.
Have you ever felt like something precious has been like consumed,
Yeah.
leaving you just feeling empty?
I think that's a universal human experience,
Yeah.
wouldn't you say?
Definitely.
But here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Joel doesn't just leave us like wallowing in despair.
Right.
Chapter 2 takes a turn,
Okay.
offering this glimmer of hope.
Instead of just throwing down the gavel,
Right.
God offers a lifeline.
Exactly.
So what does that look like?
Well, God presents a path back to restoration,
Okay.
and it begins with repentance.
Okay, so let's break down this whole concept of repentance.
Yeah.
Some might argue that true repentance is an internal shift, not necessarily something you can see.
Yeah.
How does Joel address that?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
In Joel, repentance isn't just about feeling bad about your mistakes.
Okay.
It's a complete change of heart. It's turning back to God with your entire being.
Okay.
He's looking at the sincerity of the heart,
Right.
but also at the actions that follow.
So it's about aligning our actions with that internal shift.
Yes.
Walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Precisely. And what's so powerful about Joel's message is the emphasis on God's mercy being available to,
Right.
to everyone. It doesn't matter how far someone has strayed.
Okay.
That chance for forgiveness and renewal is always there.
That's a powerful message,
Yeah.
especially for anyone feeling, lost
Yeah.
or disconnected.
Yeah.
But Joel doesn't stop there, does he?
No, he doesn't.
He takes us further into this idea of God's Spirit being poured out.
Absolutely.
Okay, this is where things get really intriguing.
Right.
Okay.
So that's the central promise that really distinguishes this book. The outpouring of God's Spirit.
Yeah.
In chapter 2, God declares that he will pour out his Spirit on all flesh,
Wow.
not just a select few, but everyone,
Okay.
young and old, men and women, all will receive this gift.
That's a radical concept, even today.
Yeah.
What did that actually look like back then in Joel's time?
Well, the text describes people prophesying, having visions, experiencing vivid dreams.
Sure.
It's this incredible outpouring of divine inspiration
Right.
and revelation.
Now, when you describe it like that,
Yeah.
makes me think about some of the things happening in our world today.
Like what?
Well, we see spiritual awakenings,
Mm-hmm.
powerful movements for social justice,
Yeah.
even this explosion of creativity and innovation
Right.
in the arts and sciences.
Mhm.
Could we be witnessing manifestations of that same spirit at work?
Yeah. It's a thought-provoking connection, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it leads to a really crucial question for all of us.
Okay, what's that?
If God's Spirit is genuinely being poured out on everyone,
Right.
what might that look like in your life?
What possibilities might be waiting to be unleashed?
Yeah,
That's a question worth reflecting on.
absolutely.
But before we get too carried away by this idea of hope and restoration,
Yeah.
we need to remember
Yeah.
That Joel doesn't just paint a rosy picture.
Right.
There's another side to this prophecy, isn't there?
You're right.
Yeah.
Chapter 3 shifts the focus to the day of the Lord,
Okay.
a time of both judgment and deliverance. It speaks of a final reckoning
Okay.
for those who have rejected God and a time of ultimate victory for those who have remained faithful.
So there are some real consequences to our choices here.
Absolutely.
It's not just about receiving blessings.
Right.
But also understanding that our decisions have,
Yeah.
lasting impact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this brings us to one of the most powerful concepts in Joel,
Okay.
the Valley of Decision.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What exactly is this valley?
Well, imagine it as a metaphor for the crossroads we encounter in life.
Okay.
Every day we face decisions,
Mm-hmm.
moments where we must choose which path to follow.
So are we talking about choosing to align ourselves with God's will
Yeah,
or choosing to go our own way?
that's the core of it. And Joel makes it clear that this isn't a decision we can, put off indefinitely.
Okay.
It carries a sense of urgency,
Right.
a weight that demands our attention.
If we're always in this valley of decision,
Right.
how do we know we're making choices that
Yeah.
that lead us toward restoration
Yeah.
and not further away from God?
Well, the answer, as we see throughout the book of Joel,
Mm-hmm.
lies in repentance.
Right.
Turning back and allowing God to restore what's been broken. But it goes deeper than that.
What do you mean?
It's about actively seeking God's guidance in every aspect of our lives, not just in our spiritual practices,
Right.
but also in our relationships, our careers, and our personal growth.
So this restoration we keep discussing,
Yeah,
it's not just some abstract spiritual concept.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
It has tangible implications for every area of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it all starts with surrender,
Okay.
acknowledging that we need God's guidance and allowing him to work in and through us.
That's a pretty powerful thought.
Yeah.
And it perfectly sets the stage for the final chapter of Joel.
Yeah.
What do you say we take a moment to let that sink in?
Sounds good.
When we come back, we'll dig deeper into this concept of restoration and explore what it truly looks like to align ourselves with God's Spirit.
Looking forward to it. Welcome back. Before the break, we were discussing that valley of decision.
Right.
And this idea of surrender as the first step towards restoration.
Yeah, it's almost as if we need to let go of our our limited understanding and trust that God has this grander plan in store for us.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And this surrender isn't about, weakness
Right.
or becoming passive.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that our own strength,
Yeah.
isn't enough.
Mhm.
We need God's
Yeah.
wisdom and power to guide us.
So it's more about humility then.
Yeah.
Admitting that we don't have all the answers.
Precisely.
Okay.
And when we embrace that humility,
Mm-hmm.
we become open to the transformative power of God's Spirit.
Okay, so how would you describe what that transformation actually looks like?
Right.
What are some tangible signs that we're aligning ourselves with God's will?
Well, Joel gives us some clues.
Okay.
He speaks about the restoration of the land,
Mm-hmm.
the abundance of crops, the flourishing of nature.
Right.
It's a picture of wholeness,
Okay.
of everything being in its rightful place.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's not just about our individual lives,
Right.
but about this broader sense of harmony and balance
Yeah.
in the world around us.
That's a key insight.
Mhm.
It's about recognizing our interconnectedness,
Okay.
our responsibility to care for creation and for one another.
It makes you think about some of the environmental crises we're facing today.
Right.
Could it be that we've lost sight of that interconnectedness?
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason we've gotten so far off course.
It's a perspective worth considering,
Yeah.
and it highlights the importance of, integrating our spiritual lives with our actions in the world.
Hmm.
Our faith shouldn't be confined to Sunday mornings.
Oh, yeah.
It should shape how we live,
Yeah.
how we treat others, how we interact with the environment.
So how do we bridge that gap
Right.
between what we believe and how we actually live?
Well, it begins with honestly examining our motivations. Why do we do the things we do?
Mm-hmm.
Are our actions driven by self-interest,
Right.
or are they rooted in a deeper sense of purpose? A desire to serve something bigger than ourselves.
So it's about aligning our values with our actions.
Exactly.
walking the walk, like we were saying earlier.
Yeah, precisely.
Mm.
And that's where the outpouring of God's Spirit comes into play.
Okay.
When we surrender to his guidance,
Mm-hmm.
we're empowered to live in a way that reflects his love, his compassion, his justice.
It's as if we become like channels for that spirit to work through us in the world.
Beautifully put.
Mm.
And when we allow that to happen,
Right.
we become agents of restoration, not just in our own lives, but in the world around us.
You're describing a ripple effect.
Yes.
You know, our personal transformation can have a positive impact on our families, communities,
Yeah.
even the planet as a whole.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Joel's message so timely and relevant for us today.
Right.
We live in a time of unprecedented challenges, but also a time of incredible opportunity.
It feels like we're standing at a crossroads,
Right.
just like the people in Joel's time. You know, we can choose to continue down a path of destruction and division,
Yeah.
or we can choose a different path, a path that leads to healing and wholeness.
And that choice, as Joel reminds us,
Right.
is ultimately in our hands.
So what does it actually look like to choose that path of restoration?
Right.
What are some like concrete steps we can take in our everyday lives?
Well, it starts with cultivating a spirit of repentance,
Okay.
not just in the sense of regretting our mistakes,
Right.
but in the sense of, continually turning back to God, realigning ourselves with his will.
So it's an ongoing practice,
Exactly.
not just a one-time event.
Right. It requires honesty,
Okay.
a willingness to confront our shortcomings and seek God's forgiveness.
And what about this idea of God's Spirit being poured out?
Yeah.
How do we open ourselves up to that?
Well, it begins with, quieting our minds,
Okay.
creating space for God to speak to us through prayer, through meditation, through spending time in nature.
It's about being intentional,
Yeah,
creating time for the practices that nourish our souls.
that's key. And it's also about paying attention to those little nudges from the Spirit
Yeah.
in our everyday lives.
Okay.
Those prompts to reach out to someone who's hurting, to stand up for what's right, to lend a helping hand.
So it's about staying present,
Right.
being aware of those opportunities to make a positive difference.
Precisely. And when we begin to live that way, when we align our actions with our values
Right.
and allow God's Spirit to work through us, that's when we start to grasp the true meaning of restoration.
So it's not just about like fixing what's broken,
Right.
but about creating something new,
Yeah.
something more beautiful and whole.
What a beautiful way to frame it.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the final chapter of Joel,
Okay.
where we catch a glimpse of that, restored future.
Okay.
Are you ready to dive into the last part of our deep dive?
Absolutely. Let's explore the culmination of Joel's prophecy
Yeah.
and what it means for us today. So we've journeyed through themes of devastation,
Yeah.
repentance, the promise of God's Spirit, and the weight of our choices.
Right.
As we enter the final chapter of Joel,
Right.
what awaits us in this prophetic landscape?
Chapter 3 offers a glimpse into the culmination of God's plan,
Okay.
a vision that encompasses both judgment and ultimate restoration.
Okay.
It depicts what theologians often refer to as the day of the Lord, a time of reckoning for those who have turned away from God,
Right.
and a time of deliverance for those who have remained faithful.
When I hear Day of the Lord,
Yeah.
my mind kind of jumps to images of fire and brimstone,
Right.
like a purely punitive event.
Sure.
But you're suggesting there's a deeper layer to it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
While judgment is certainly a part of the picture,
Right.
it's crucial to remember that God's ultimate desire is not to punish, but to restore. Even amidst judgment, there's this thread of hope,
Okay.
a promise of ultimate redemption woven throughout.
So how does this redemption unfold in Joel's vision?
Yeah.
What does it actually look like?
He paints a picture of a transformed world,
Okay.
a world where the land is fertile, rivers overflow with abundance, and justice and righteousness prevail.
Okay.
It's this vision of shalom, the
Yeah.
wholeness that God intended for creation from the very beginning.
So it's not just about escaping punishment then,
Right.
but about becoming part of something bigger,
Yes.
something more beautiful and just.
Precisely. And that's where the outpouring of God's Spirit we discussed earlier
Right.
comes full circle. It's through the power of that spirit that we can participate in this restoration, become agents of healing and transformation in the world.
So we're like co-creators with God.
Yeah.
Working alongside him to bring about this vision of shalom.
That's a powerful thought, that we're invited to be co-creators with God, working alongside him to bring about this vision of shalom.
But how does this ancient prophecy apply to our lives right here, right now?
Well, it starts by recognizing that the day of the Lord isn't some, distant event.
Right.
It's a reality unfolding all around us.
Okay.
In every moment, each choice we make, every action we take contributes either to forces of destruction or to forces of restoration.
So we're called to live with intentionality.
Yes.
Understanding that our actions have this real ripple effect.
Exactly. And we're not alone in this journey.
Okay.
We have the power of God's Spirit within us, guiding us, empowering us, and urging us towards that vision of wholeness.
It's like we're always navigating that valley of decision, constantly faced with choices that shape not only our own destiny, but the destiny of the world around us.
That's a profound insight, and it brings us back to the core message of Joel, the call to repentance.
Right.
It's an invitation to turn back to God with our whole hearts. When we surrender, when we let go of our limited perspective, that's when we open ourselves up to the transformative power of the Spirit. That's how we become, active participants in God's grand plan of restoration.
What a powerful message to conclude our deep dive with.
Yeah.
It leaves me with one final thought for you to ponder.
Okay.
If God's Spirit is truly being poured out on everyone, as Joel proclaimed, what unseen potential might be stirring within you? What part might you play in this unfolding story of redemption and restoration?
Yeah, that's definitely something worth reflecting on.
It is, and thank you for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
As we explore the depths of Joel's message,
absolutely,
may his words continue to challenge and inspire us as we seek to live lives of purpose and meaning in a world that desperately needs the healing touch of God's Spirit.
Couldn't have said it better myself.